in light of my last LSD trip, I'd like to talk about the topic of the ego. What is the ego and what is ego death? Because I experienced not a total ego loss, not a total ego death, but you know, a pretty intense version of it. And to just explain to you a little bit, so anytime my mind was trying to identify with something, like say something like make any statement that attaches, that grasps, that identifies, I would just sort of automatically make fun of it. And I mentioned how I was full of this sarcasm and full of this divine comedy. And so I really sort of made fun of every single role, right? And so I would make a statement, for example, like, I don't know, for example, I am a speaker. I am good at speaking. And then automatically, like as soon as I would utter the statement, then I would say something like, oh, look at you, speaker. Oh, wow, really? You're a speaker. Look at Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker has been speaking ever since he came out of his mother's womb. He's always been speaking and he's going to speak forever. And then I would sort of laugh about it, because in that state, you sort of realize like you can't identify with anything because nothing is true, because everything is always changing. If I am a speaker, then am I also a speaker when I'm sleeping? Am I a speaker when I leave this body? You see? So everything, anytime the mind, the ego, and I'll explain to you what the ego is in a second. Every time the mind, aka the ego, was trying to grasp something, to bring life into itself, to say, look, I exist too. I'm a speaker. I'm a public speaker, right? Then automatically Brahman, Atman, the soul, consciousness, would sort of make fun of it, because consciousness knows that it is eternal. It isn't anything. It is no thing. It's nothingness. It's not any role. It just plays the roles. It's all the roles. It is the actor, so it is all the roles. So it's more accurate to say I am a speaker, and I'm a public speaker, and I'm a silent deaf person, all at the same time, because then somewhere else right now you're also silent and deaf in a different manifestation. So it's more accurate to say I'm everything, and even most accurate when you say I am no thing. Because if you're no thing, you could take on anything. You could become anything, and so you're everything. So anytime, the mind, the ego was trying to grasp onto something and attach to it and say, I am this, create a story, in other words, then automatically the sarcastic response would appear. And then a cosmic giggle followed by that. So, pretty rough if you're really attached to who you think you are. So ego, in simple terms, it's thought. It's thought. It's any thought you have is ego. Ego is the storyline of the character. That's what ego is. Ego is the storyline. Ego is the thought. Any thought you have is ego. You understand? So anytime you're in the pursuit of something intellectually, you're in the realm of ego, because you're inquiring. And even when you're inquiring, like curiosity is ego. Yeah, okay, like I'm curious, right? That's the story, right? I'm a curious, right? I'm always curious. Oh yeah, you're curious too when you're sleeping. You're curious too when you're just hanging out, laying back, watching Seinfeld. No, you're just watching Seinfeld at that point, right? You're just a being who's watching something else, like something, and it's making you laugh. Are you right now curious? Not really. There's no curiosity there. You're just hanging out, watching. So any role, anything you say, actually, the minute, the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao, right? That's the first line of the Tao Te Ching. So it's thought. It's anytime you think of something. Like right now, I'm using the ego, the storyline, so that's words. I'm speaking to you. I'm thinking. I'm in the realm of thoughts here. And so that's ego, and it's your ego that is interpreting these thoughts and thinking about them also. So anytime we're thinking, that's ego, period. Right? And that just was very obvious for me, because anytime I thought, I tried to grasp to something, I tried to cling on to a storyline, a particular storyline, whatever it is, any role, then a sarcastic response would come in. And it would be the truth. Okay, it would just be the truth. So that's what it is. That's what it is. So it's when you say, for example, something like, I've been working on my ego, right? Or I used to have a big ego, but now I don't really have a big ego. Who's making that statement? Who's making that statement? I think we all know who's making that statement. It's thoughts, it's words, it's storyline. It's a storyline. You have a story now about how your ego was big and now it's smaller. So that's ego. So now is the ego inescapable then? Really? Do I have to stop thinking? No thought? Just no thought? Not exactly. Because it seems that almost all the enlightened beings who got enlightened and they went beyond words, they were still thinking, it seems. It seems that, for example, I just read Who Am I by Ramana Maharshi. It's a very small book. And the book was just a series of questions. Somebody asked them and then he answered them. But he didn't answer them with words. He answered them with words, but he didn't answer them speaking. He wrote it down. It was writing. So if you're writing something, even if you're not speaking, but you're writing, you're thinking, right? Somebody's asking you, how do you practice the technique? Because it's a technique. Who am I? And then he would have like an answer. So he's thinking clearly. So Ramana Maharshi is, at that point, a self-realized being, is in a totally playful state where he sees the ego for what it is. The play of the egoless. Okay? The ego is the play of the egoless. So he is the egoless. It's not even a he, but it's he in the sense that he that's the part of the game, that he is a man, right? So let's say he is the egoless with total awareness, with absolute total awareness that he is playing with the ego. So there is basically zero identification at that point with the body, with the character, and with the thought. In other words, if a thought comes to a being like that simply responds to the thought. Because that being is God, and that thought is necessary for that being to carry out so that the game continues to go on. So Ramana Maharshi asks these questions and he answers them. He writes down the answers. But his mind is so quiet, and he is basically self-realized. He is God. He is the egoless. He is in a non-dual awareness. And so he writes the answers. He writes the answers because he is God, and because that is what needs to happen in the illusion. That's what needs to happen in the divine comedy, in the divine drama. So then the words just come in, and the being of Ramana Maharshi is totally in harmony with the Tao. So the words are just written. Like the thoughts are thought, they're received, and they're automatically written. They're divine thoughts, they're harmonious thoughts, and they're written. Right? So in a way, Ramana Maharshi is using the ego as its best used, as an instrument of playing. It's a play. Okay? Another story about another saint, a self-realized saint, Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna used to go into states of ecstasy, right? Totally beyond words. Totally beyond words. And when he would come down from these states, he would have a problem speaking. He would take him a little bit to remember words, to come back to this realm. Okay? And then he would be able to speak. He would be able to write. But, with total awareness that, like, it's just like he's just playing with words. It's all forms of play. And in fact, when he was I think almost passing, when he was almost about to drop his body, I think what the words he used were, if I remember listening to a Vedanta podcast, and if I remember the words that he used, because I think he used to worship Kali, Ma Kali, he said, Mother, I'm ready to go home. I'm done playing. I'm done playing with the disciples. And other times he would say, before he said that, he'd be like, Mother, he'd go into these states and he'd be like, Mother, please let me come down so I can play with the disciples. So I can play with the disciples, you see, because, play with myself in all these different forms. Okay? So that's what he'd say. He would say, Ma, please, just let me go down. I just want to play with the disciples. Right? He would come down, play with the disciples. And then he, I think when he was about to go, he just said, Ma, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go home. I'm done playing. Now, those were his words, I believe. I'm done playing. And you go into these states where no words are necessary. No words are even really, you don't think. There's no thinking. You're in a purely experiential state, but it isn't like a dumb type of thing. You know everything in that state. Your absolute knowledge. You know it all. Like, you know, but you don't know that you know. You just know. Okay, it's kind of like, when me and my friend were tripping, I would sort of, I speak a lot and stuff, right? So I talk a lot. So I was doing most of the talking, but everything I was saying, I was reading her mind, and I was speaking for both of us, and I was reading everything in her mind, but I didn't know that I was reading. But I didn't know intellectually, but I know that it was just one mind, and I was saying everything that was in her mind, but I didn't know that I knew. It wasn't an intellectual thing. I just knew. Okay, so it's that type of state. It's not a state where you don't know, you're dumb. You know everything because everything is perfect and you know everything. So then these self-realized beings, when they would come down to play, they would literally come down to play. They see it as a play. So they're still in this ego, using this body, using this mind, but they've transcended it. So they're just using it purely as an instrument for playing. You see, and that's when you become a pure instrument for the Tao, pure instrument for God. And yeah, so it isn't the ego, which is the storyline, which is the thought. It's the thought is the play of the thoughtless. The ego is the play of the egoless. So it isn't something to be demonized. It is simply something to be transcended and then played with. You understand? It's something to be, let me say this again. Thought is the thought of the thoughtless. The ego is the storyline of the egoless. The ego is not something to be demonized. It is to be transcended and used as an instrument for playing and creating. It's for play equals creation. Creation equals playing. Playing equals creation. Okay? So, if you try to go into meditation and stop thinking, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You might be able to eventually go into higher states where words aren't necessary. But even in those states, you might get a thought. And when you get that thought, you're automatically brought down a little bit because you need to be brought down a little bit into creation and you need to play. There is a need for you to come down and play, whatever that need is in the game. Okay? So, the best thing you could do is to meditate and calm your mind and become in flow, in harmony with the way, in harmony with the Tao. And then whatever thoughts come to you are thoughts that need to come to you. Like this is my second video in a row. You know, that's a lot of ego going on here, a lot of stories and a lot of talking and speaking and language. However, I really quieted myself down, I really calmed myself down and spent 2 hours in meditation. And so my feeling is that this video and the video that I made before are absolutely perfect videos. And I mean, that's this character's role in the play, in the divine play, in the Leela. And these videos need to be made. This ego needs to be used to play and make these videos. You see? But perhaps if I wasn't so grounded and I wasn't so calm and quiet in the mind, and I said, well, I'm gotta make videos, right? Like it was like a willpower thing, like, you know, then perhaps those videos are not going to be put out with a playful vibration, and therefore they're disharmonious. Okay? So yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, thank you to all the Patreons for supporting this channel, supporting this work, and eternally, whatever, you know, everything is eternity, everything is infinity. I'm eternally grateful and thankful for you guys, for your support, your continued support. Some of you guys now have been here for many, many months, and I really want to thank you. And if something you're interested in, if you find my videos helpful, you would like to continue to support me on this journey and create some good karma, then join the Patreon family. Buy me something for a couple of dollars. That's like 2 coconuts. It's not bad. A month. Or if you want, you could make one-time donations via PayPal. Okay, and use the laws of the universe, the law of giving and receiving. You give, you'll get back exponentially. Okay, use your ego to help you go further along in the game. So I'm giving you a chance here to use your ego and help this ego here. So thank you to all the people who support, who are supporting, who will support. I love you guys, and until next time, may the force be with you.